Okay, so in this video, I'm going to go over a few tools that are going to help you, that we talked about today, that are going to help you get started with your room. I think are pretty important because you need to understand about the pivot point, which we haven't really talked about yet. And well, we talked about it, but we not really talked about how to manipulate it and then how to actually duplicate things just instead of like copying things one over, but actually how to basically what Duplicate special, which allows you to do things like create one fan blade and then create these other four in the same exact spot. Create one bulb here, then create the other two in the spot where you need them basically at. So getting started on a project, a few things we'll talk about. Say if you want to create your door here, notice you have your door. Now, we talked about if you wanted to recenter this, how sometimes you created things with nerves and curves, how your pivot point would be really jacked up and you'd have to move it. You could modify it by like center pivot and move it to the center of the object. Well, what if we want to move this and create other items on a consistent of this axis right here, but we don't want it right in the middle? Say, for instance, this door, like if you actually wanted to place this door in the open position, there's really no way you could do that because it would have to be like the pivot point is in the middle. Well, the way to change the pivot points is basically just to go in, like say from the side point of view, go to your transform tool, press D, and then you get this little box here. Now if you move this slide around, you're actually moving your pivot point around. So now your pivot point's in a different spot. You can make stuff go like that. Press D again. Move it up here. So I want to animate my door being open. It's as easy as that. You can snap to vertex by holding D and V at the same time. And that brings this thing up here, and what that does, it snaps to basically, or snap to grid is what you need for this. So it can bring you, if I go on wireframe, say if you want to go in the middle. Make it more exact. Basically D is your biggest one. You can use this how you want, but this helps you move it. And you don't necessarily have to have the pivot point on the actual geometry itself, in other words. So say if your geometry is up here, but you want your pivot point down here, you can move your pivot point. So therefore, if you go to rotate in the object, it can be rotated like that. Now, one biggest reason why I tell you that is because this works with the control duplicate. And we'll talk about the control duplicate right now. So yeah, you have your control duplicate, which is control D, and you've created another one. Control D, create another one. But you can actually go to your duplicate special, open your box up, always open your box up. This basically tells you where these things are, and you can kind of pinpoint basically where you want these objects duplicated. This thing is on 0 space right now. I want this thing to be, whenever I copy this, I want the thing to be 2 units over. This is your XYZ axis. And I want to create 3 copies. You want to create copy, you don't want to create instance. Wait, I need to select it first. Oops. Did the rotate. That's coming, so apply. So now I've created 3 copies on that axis, 2 units apart. was your translate. You could do it, and then you start adding. We could do it on, this is going to go on the other axis now. If I select all these, I'm going to create 3 copies of these 4 boxes, 2 units up. Then you see how things start working like that. And everything is based off of the original's pivot point, which brings me to the point here. So say like we're looking at my fan here, how would you go about creating those objects on a perfect position instead of having to move these around in space? You just use their duplicate special and make this really fast. So say you got your fan here. This is one fan blade that I've just created. It's just whatever. It's kind of jacked up there, but it's meant to look like a fan blade, I guess. You do the blue wireframe so you can see it. And this is these objects I've just put together, then I mesh combine them together. They look better smoothed over. It was like some little rivets and like a little plate, and I basically just molded them all together. So, and then I've combined them all together. So my pivot point's right in the middle. So say I have a fan that I've made. So say you got your fan motor right here. And so say you need this fan kind of like creating your fan blades out, but you needed to create off this pivot point right here. So I'm just going to go to my top view. And it's right out of center space. So I'm going to press D, hold down my pivot point. I'm going to move it to the very middle right here. This is where that Vertex select comes in handy if you press D and V at the same time. Oops. So now that pivot point is right there in the middle where the actual fan would be at. So if you were to come over here and look at your duplicate special box, you don't want to duplicate on the translate because we're not going to the left or right or up or down. We're actually just going around on the y-axis. So I'm going to set these values to 0, and I know that I'm going to have one every, basically this is 360 degrees, so I know I'm going to have one on basically every 90-degree angle. If I was going to have one every 45-degree angle, I'd have 8 blades, and I'd create it at 45, but I'm just going to type in a value of 90 right here, and I only want 3 copies. So therefore that gives me 4 blades right there that all are kind of connected with that motor. And then if I were to combine all these together, now you could, the pivot point's in the middle, and you could actually position this how you wanted to. Say you wanted to give the fan blade like a little turn. Does it really matter? So now each one is going to duplicate that turn, so it looks like it's your legit fan going on there. You know, obviously it would be, I would combine this together. I'd have more built out in the middle there. And if you're wondering why I did that, is because when I combine that cylinder to the rest of these objects, they're on smooth preview. That's why I did that. So don't fret about that. And then that all becomes one object. You can turn it over 180 degrees. Get rid of this box. You know, you can animate your fan how you want to if you wanted to position it differently. The best thing to do is to always work on the 0 space and make sure your pivot point's in the right place. And that is kind of a rough well, not really a rough, but you know, just a crash course. Now, what I did here when I had the bulbs and these little housings that I use a revolve to make, I just divided 360 by 3, which is 60 degrees, I think, and it created one of these objects every a little bit over 45-degree angle. Looks pretty nice. A few other things you may want to get started with your, if you'll notice with mine room, I don't have walls in mine. I just have this space that kind of like seems to disappear every time I go around. You can do that with any object. It's called Backface culling. Let's just say this is going to be your room and you have it as big as you want to. You're just doing 4 walls, closet, which is fine. I would suggest putting detail on the walls, but if you notice you go in here, it's black, you need to reverse the directions, and that's not the same as this reverse direction that we did with the surface tool. You have to go in your mesh display and reverse the normals. So you're black on the outside, but the inside is lit, and you go to your display, polygons, backface culling. Need to select it first, sorry. So that just adds and you can actually lock this down in the layer tab if you want to, and just start dropping your items in there and placing them around, so you'll know basically what is what. I mean, I would suggest creating hard walls and stuff, and we'll talk about more Thursday on bringing in blueprints from Illustrator. You can use this SVG and copy paint, or copy your pen tool if you're going to blueprint out your things, or you can basically just start creating your walls how you want to. But just remember, planning is the biggest thing. So if I'm going to have this wall here and I'm going to have a window in there, go ahead and give it some divisions. So you can start using your bridge tool and whatever tools you want to use to start bridging things. If you do the same thing and you press G, it basically recreates that thing. Use edge loop tool to create an edge loop. Now I'm going to go back to my face mode. I'm going to extrude out edges. I want to put another division down in there, as long as you keep nice quads. You know, this isn't even, but say if I'm going to create some sort of frame for my window, you know, obviously I would have created a way for it to connect up here. So yeah, those are the two important tools, the pivot point and the control duplicate special. They really come in handy with this. Just remember, every time you open, you want to use your duplicate special. Always use your box so you can see what's going on. You can know what's going on. Difference between copy and instance. if you create an instance of all of them, if you do one thing to the original one, it's going to happen to all of them. Kind of like the surface, the curve tool doing with the surface after you made the surface. And just look at all your X, Y, Z coordinates. Make sure everything's set to either 0 or the value that you want to create. And yeah, have fun with it. The only thing is I can't hit Control C and it undoes whenever I do this. I have to go back up here and edit undo. So you may find that out, know what I'm talking about. So, okay, well, that's it for now. Thursday, like I said, we're going to go over run an occlusion map on this stuff. So you can render this out like a nice white base color and a few other tools that will help make a book and stuff like that. I think I went over making a book today, but we'll go over that Thursday too. So, or let me do it really quick so I keep everything in line or keep everything in order. So today I just showed how I would go about making a book. If you notice, some of the student examples had different books in there. A little bit of pre-planning. I know you're probably sick of that term. Book here, just going to make it bigger. I don't need any divisions on the top. Go to my side view or my front view. Yeah, my side view. Push these out a little bit and make it look like a bind. I'm going to throw an edge loop tool, my edge loop tool in here. Then I'm just going to select these faces here. Instead of scaling them in, I'm going to extrude them in. Want to go -0.2, -0.02 is what I want. So yeah, as you can see, it already kind of has that look. And say if you're a smooth preview that it collapses like that, that's because you need to put some more divisions in there. And so instead of adding a bunch, you can kind of just add what you need. And you get more detailed with it. If you want to get the pages, each one of the pages a different look. But you know, your control duplicate, you can duplicate this or duplicate special and just scale different for different sizes or to make them look a little different. Pile books up on a shelf. Some magazines. Okay, guys. Yeah, so we will reconvene, and if you got any more issues or questions about how to do certain things, hit me up, let me know. But these are two big things you need to kind of get started, I think, is knowing the pivot point and your duplicate special with this. And like I said, have fun with the project, and yeah, see you later.